Hello, and welcome to the next of our live lessons, all to do with the seasons. And today's season is autumn, which seems a little odd, seeing as we're having such a wonderful time weather-wise at the moment, and it's very sunny and very summery. But we're focusing on autumn today, and that is the plan for today's lesson. So before we get going on the lesson and what we're actually going to be doing today, on the website as a PDF or on the Facebook group as a JPEG is the worksheet for today's lesson. You don't have to use it. It's not compulsory. You can do this lesson without it. It's absolutely fine, but it is there if you want to make use of it, and you may decide you want to use some of the information on it after the lesson today to sort of do a little extension activity or something like that. But everything that you require is on that worksheet for you to be able to access. It's double-sided, so 2 pages of work there, but everything you require is going to be on the screen for you, so don't worry about that. All of the music you're going to listen to today has been created by myself, so there are no copyright issues. Make a big point of saying this every time, but it is so important that the music that I record and create is all computerized, and it's done on purpose so that we don't get into trouble with copyright, because obviously, you know, people have written these things, they're all absolutely fine to perform because they're out of copyright in that respect. But if we use somebody else's performance of it, obviously, you know, that's copywritten too. So I would encourage you to go out and have a listen to some of these pieces of music played by real musicians, live musicians, because you can't beat it. Music, you know, music should be live. Having said that, we have to resort to this, but that's okay because, you know, it works. It does work. So let us get on with today's lesson. So we're all about autumn. We're focusing today on something called an interval. An interval is the distance between 2 notes. So that's sort of our primary focus today, looking at what intervals are and what they sound like. And we're only going to be looking at major intervals today. There are 2 different types: major intervals, minor intervals. There's more in between, but you know, that's sort of the main focus. Major intervals we think of as happy sounding, and minor intervals we think of as sad sounding, if we're really simplifying things. And to make it as simple and straightforward for you today as possible, just to get an sort of a foot in the door with intervals, we're just focusing on the one type. We're just focusing on major intervals. But it's the distance between 2 notes. And an interval can be the distance between 2 individual notes, da da, or it can be 2 notes played at the same time to create a chord. A chord is 2 or more notes played at the same time. So the interval can describe both of those things. The distance between 2 notes, just on their own, da da, that would be an interval, or 2 notes actually played at the same time, that will also be an interval created through a chord. Okay, so we're going to have a look at those. We're going to explore what they sound like and have a listen to some and have a little bit of a quiz at the end. So I've written these intervals down for you so that you can see how they look on music as they're written. The bottom note of these chords, because I've written them as chords, the bottom note of these chords every single time is middle C, so that you've got sort of that bass note to work from each time, and you can see how it works. And I'm hopefully going to give you some ideas of songs that you can sort of use to the beginning of songs to use to sort of help you to figure out what these intervals are. When you listen to them, you go, oh yeah, that's the 3rd. Oh yeah, that's the 7th, or whatever it might be. So the bottom note every single time is a C, and we count up from C to the next note. So the very first interval you can see there is what we call a second. And that's because you've got the C, C, D, we're just moving to the next note. 1, 2, they're next door to each other. And so that's called a second, okay? So let me just play you the interval of a second, first the 2 notes individually, and then played as a chord, so that you can hear how that works. Okay, so you've got that C, D, and then the two notes played at the same time. I can't sing two notes at the same time and be incredibly clever if I could, and I'd earn lots of money from it, but it's not possible to sing a chord two notes at the same time. So that's why we're resorting to listening to them. But if we think about a song that starts that way, happy birthday, happy birthday, happy birthday to you. The beginning of happy birthday is a second. Da da. First note is repeated. Happy, and then birth. There's our second. So that's a good way of thinking, oh, is that a second? Happy birth? Yes, it is. You can figure it out. You can use these songs to help you to work out what the intervals are. But a second's quite an easy one, I think, to be able to identify. And seconds can be used in a lot of music to sort of create tension. It's one of those chords that creates tension. Let's see if I can just take that back a little bit. And there's some tension in there because they're really close together. It creates that tension. So it could be used in horror music, or it could be used in music to describe something that could be a little bit scary. Okay. The next interval we're going to look at is a third, a major third. And the major third is really nice. It fits really nicely together. If you were singing in harmonies, if you've got two-part harmony going on, thirds work really well. And it's because they're actually part of a triad, three-note chord. So if you're playing chords on a guitar or as an accompaniment to something, very often they're made up of thirds. So let's have a little listen to a third. Hopefully. And you can hear that just works really nicely. Da, da. Now, ways of remembering that. Oh, when the saints, oh, when. It's also today, from Today Was a Fairy Tale from Taylor Swift. So you've got two ways of remembering a third there. So the third, da, da, it's a nice sound. It works really well because it is part of that chord idea. So now we get on to our fourth. Here we go. Okay, so a fourth, the distance of a fourth, and we can count this one up. Da, 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 fourth, 1, 2, 3, 4. That's another way of working out the interval. If you don't want to use songs to help you, you want to count up, you can do it that way. Da, 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 da. Always reminds me of the Addams Family. Da, 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 dum, which is a TV program and a film, and that was the main theme to it. It started off, da, 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 dum. So that idea of a fourth is there, but you could have Here Comes the Bride or Amazing Grace. Both of those songs start with a fourth. Da, da, here comes. Okay, so there's our fourth. Now the fifth is very special because the fifth is what we looked at last week when we were using a drone, and when we think of that bagpipe idea, fifths are very common for this. Here we go. Now, in many ways, the fifth is probably one of the easiest of the intervals to identify because it's Twinkle, Twinkle, Little Star. Most of us know that. Twinkle, twinkle, da, da. It's got space there. Da, da. Talking of space, it is the opening of the main theme to Star Wars. Da, da. I'm not going to sing any more of that, but it's that fifth idea. Works great when you're doing sort of spacey music. So there's our fifth. Da, 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 da. You can count it up that way as well. So we're now getting onto a sixth, and you can hear the gap getting bigger and bigger. And in some ways, identifying when the gap's bigger, it makes it a little bit more difficult. But I think you can do this. So here's our sixth. quite a gap there when you hear the chord. In actual fact, the sixth is almost like the reverse of the third. So if you played the top note as your bottom note and then put your bottom note as your top note, you've got a third. It works in the opposite. But da da, my Bonnie lies over the ocean, my Bonnie lies over the sea. That's the start of My Bonnie Lies Over the Ocean. So that da da, my bon. Or you can count up. Da 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 da. There's our sixth. Sixths work really nicely. It's a really nice interval. We're nearly there. Let's have a listen to our seventh. That one's not so nice, is it? Sevenths are really good again if you're trying to create tension, you're trying to create an atmosphere that may be frightening, or, you know, horror music or exciting music where something dramatic is about to happen and you're creating all that tension, and then it will all relax. So sevenths, really great chords for that. It also, da, da, you don't feel like you're there yet. You want to move on. Da, 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 da. You want to go on to the next note, but you can't because that's the seventh. If we think of songs as an 80s classic that the chorus starts with a seventh, take on me, and then it goes to that eighth, take on, take on, take on, that seventh clashy chord. So there's our seventh. And our final interval. Now that interval will always sound lovely because it's an octave and you're actually playing the same note. So both of the notes there are C's. One's a low C and one's a high C. And we call that, instead of calling it an eighth, we refer to it as an octave. It's the distance of an octave. So the octave will always sound nice to the ear. And somewhere over the rainbow starts with an octave. So there's lots of ways of remembering these intervals. Okay, so I'm just going to play you each of these intervals in turn. We'll go right back to the beginning and start with our second. Listen through them all so that you can be happy with what you're hearing. Second, happy birth, yeah, happy birth, happy birth, happy birthday for our second. Oh, when, da da da. Now our fourth. Da 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 da. Adam's Family, or here comes the bride. Our fifth, brilliant as a drone, twinkle twinkle, or the opening of the main theme from Star Wars. Sixth, always sounds nice, da 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 da, my bon. Clashy chord, gap in the middle, take on. Seventh. And our octave, both the same notes being played at the same time in this instance, or could be separated into two notes. Either way works for an interval. So what we're going to do is a little bit of a quiz, because, you know, why not? Let's put these intervals to the test. So I'm going to play you the 7 intervals, all jumbled up. And what I'd like you to do is write down which interval is being played. Okay, It's as straightforward as that. So you're going to listen to each of the intervals, and I want you to see if you can write down which ones you are hearing and use whichever method you wish to use to help you to figure those intervals out. So here we go. Here's your little quiz from the beginning. Here's your first interval. And number 2. Number 3. Number 4. Number 5. Number 6. And your last one, number 7. Now I'm going to play all of those through again. I'm not going to say anything this time in between. I'm just going to let you write your answers down for those intervals. So listen to each of them one more time just to check. Each one will only appear once. So if you've got the same answer twice, one of them will be wrong. Here we go. Okay, let's see how you did. Let's go through the answers together. So, shall we listen to each of the intervals beforehand so that we can actually get an idea? So there's our first one. And our first one is a third. Da 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 da. Oh, when the saints. Our next one. Happy birth. That should have been quite a straightforward one to identify because they were right next door to each other. A second. And the next one. And again, a relatively straightforward one because it's both the same notes. So it is an eighth, an octave. We can hear that drone sound, da da, or twinkle, twinkle. Number 5. Oh, that's that clashy one. Clash, clash, clash. So that's the 7th, and it's the beginning of Take On Me. That one's quite a pleasant one to listen to. Da-da-da-dum. Or you could have used Here Comes the Bride. Or you might have just counted up. And our last one was the 6th. Okay, so those are our intervals, and hopefully you got some of those right. It doesn't matter if you didn't get them all right. It's tricky. You've only spent, 20 minutes looking at this. So in 20 minutes, if you've got half of them right, you've done really well. So well done. So let's have a look at these intervals in action. So on the music in front of you, you have the opening of Autumn from the Four Seasons by the composer Vivaldi. Now we're going to have a little listen to this, but if you're looking at the music, you should be able to see that most of the intervals being used in this are thirds. There's 1 or 2 fourths in there, but the majority of the intervals that are being used in this are thirds. And that gives it a really pleasant, warm atmosphere. And this particular section of Autumn from the Four Seasons is supposed to be depicting, I think, they're gathering in the crops. Everybody's really happy. It's, think of it as being a bumper harvest, all of that sort of stuff. There's a celebration as you're getting the harvest in. So that positivity, that happiness, that feeling of goodness then is being communicated through the music. So we're going to have just a little listen to the piece of music that is in front of you so that you can hear how this sort of the use of the thirds works. Here we go. Very upbeat, it's a lovely piece of music. The section from Autumn from the Four Seasons by Vivaldi. I mean, all of the Four Seasons are great pieces of music, but I particularly like this one. Now, I do sort of mention this later on, but there's nothing stopping you from having a go at learning how to play that. If you've got access to a keyboard, then you might be able to have a go at learning how to play this. That would be my sort of extension activity that I mentioned later on. And the music is written down for you if you do decide you want to have a go at that on the worksheet, so that you've got the music exactly as you can see it on screen. There is how it's written down for you. So you've got access to that. So let's have a look at other composers and how they describe autumn. We're going to have a listen to 3 pieces of music that are describing autumn. They're all very different, maybe similar from each other. There's similarities, there's differences. What different aspects of autumn are they describing, and how do they do that through the music? So when you're listening to these 3 pieces of music, what I want you to do is think about the instruments they're using. Have a think about the dynamics, the louds and the quiets. These are all words that we've come across before, keywords. Have a think about the intervals that they might be using, as we've been looking at intervals today. Think of the tempo. Is it fast? Is it slow? What does that convey? If something is very fast, does that have a particular effect on the impression that it gives? It could be you think about the articulation. That's a word we have come across before. Articulation is how the music is played. Is it smooth? Is it spiky? We use the words legato for smooth and staccato for short and detached. So think about how that is introduced into the music. So as you're listening to it, you are thinking about all of these things as you go. Now, I always disappear when you listen to pieces of music because I think that I would be a distraction if I move, if, moving and things on the screen. It's not going to help you. So I'm going to keep out of the way while you listen to this. The first piece of music you're going to hear is October, Autumn Song by Tchaikovsky. So I'm going to play each one just once, and then we'll maybe listen to all of them one after another again at the end. So here is October, Autumn Song. So write down your ideas about October, Autumn Song. Think about that tempo, think about the accompaniment, what's going on in the background, not just the melody, what else is being played. So now we're going to move on to another piece of music, and we're going to have a listen to The Maple Leaf Rag by Scott Joplin. I love this one. Here we go. And we've got one more piece of music to have a listen to, and that is November by Fanny Mendelssohn. Now, she was the sister of the very famous Mendelssohn that we were listening to last week. So they were both composers, and this was one of her pieces. She wrote a piece of music for every month of the year, and this is her piece for November. There we go. Now we'll have a listen to all three again. Are there any similarities between these three pieces, and what are their differences? Now, you may have covered all of that within your write-up that you've created on, whether it's on a piece of paper or whether you're using the worksheet and you've got space to write down your ideas. But it does say at the bottom of the worksheet, if you are using that, are there any similarities between these three pieces? If so, what are they? So you could be writing down those similarities as well. Let's have another little listen to these three pieces of music then, just straight off, one after another. So we'll start with the Tchaikovsky, then we'll move on to the Maple Leaf Rag by Scott Joplin, and then we'll listen to November again. So here we go. Okay, and our second one, which is the Maple Leaf Rag. And our last one, November. Okay, so let's have a think about what you've got as your answers. See whether what you think and whether what I think are the same, different, similar, nothing like each other. We'll find out, won't we? Let's see what you've come up with. So, if we're thinking about the first piece of music, let's go through them individually first. Let's think about the Tchaikovsky. So the Tchaikovsky is sort of like a walking pace. It's not fast, it's not slow. I would sort of say it's more of an andante. It's a bit of a walking pace. You've got the melody tune being played in both hands, the left hand and the right hand, at different points within the music. There is some dissonance when a sort of clashy chords, so the seconds and the sevenths being used within it. There's chords in the left hand at the start, so in the bass part, I suppose. It doesn't matter if you haven't said which hand it is, because why would you necessarily know? But in that lower part, there are chords that are being played to accompany the melody, and then the melody sort of reverts into that lower part. So there's quite a lot going on there. It's quite dramatic. Then we move on to the Maple Leaf Rag, and that's much faster. It's a very jolly piece of music. when we think about this, I mean, the first piece of music, the Tchaikovsky, if we go back to it briefly, it's talking about October. October is not a bad month. A lot of harvests used to take place traditionally in October. Sort of the seasons are moving a little bit. They're coming a little bit sooner now, but traditionally in October, that would be when you were sort of gathering in. And so maybe you get that impression. The maple leaf rag is describing the maple leaf. That's the whole piece of the point of the piece of music. The maple is a tree from Canada, and it's when the sort of seasons change, the leaves become this sort of beautiful red color. We get maple syrup from the maple. So we are thinking about that sort of change of seasons, change of color, and this vibrant red. So think about that now in the context of the piece of music you've listened to. It's very fast. It's upbeat. You've got use of chords in there in the accompaniment. The melody is very optimistic, happy, or use of octaves. It's all that. It's very jolly. It's one of my favorites. I love Scott Joplin rags anyway, but the maple leaf rag is really good one. So explore a bit about Scott Joplin. That would be my advice to you. He also wrote The Entertainer, which is another fantastic piece of music. So well worth having a look at Scott Joplin. And then our third piece of music, November. Now, I don't know about you, I find November a bit of a depressing month. There's a lot that goes on in November that is quite sad, and about remembering things that are very sad. And so you've got that sadness there, I think, within the piece of music for November. It's the month before a lot of sort of celebrations. It's that sort of, you've had the harvest in October, you've got Christmas or other festivities to look forward to in December, and then you've got November and it's getting dark, and the clocks make it darker, and it can be quite depressing, and so it's quite slow and it's sad. There is the use of octaves in the melody line, and again there are chords being used throughout, and more emphasized, I think, in that one. You can really, there's a lot of movement together, both hands together, whereas in the other two, the chords were the accompaniment and the tune was doing its own thing. In this third piece, the chords are sort of more part of the whole thing. And so similarities, you could say, well, do you know what? All of them are written for piano. That's a big similarity. They're all being played on a piano, but there are very stark differences as well as to how the instrument is being used, and the use of the chords. Two of them, the Tchaikovsky and the Scott Joplin, you could say maybe is similar in the use of the chords in the accompaniment, but the third piece, I would say, is the chords are used slightly differently. So there's a lot that you could sort of take from those three pieces, and bearing in mind that they're all about autumn, and then you compare that with the Vivaldi that we listened to before, and it just shows how composers can interpret things in so many different ways on just one topic, exploring it. So as I said earlier, as an extension activity, you could have a go at learning the opening to Autumn from the Four Seasons by Vivaldi. That would be a really good sort of thing to do if you've got the resources to be able to do that. But we have very much reached the end of today's lesson. We've gone a bit longer than I would normally, and that's not a bad thing because there's been so much to cover. I think it's a good thing. Why not? So next lesson, we will be looking at the very last one of our seasons, and it will be winter, which will be feeling quite ironic seeing as it's getting into summer here. So we'll be looking at how winter is described through music and exploring it. I'm already really looking forward to that. You've got some fabulous pieces of music to have a listen to. I hope you've enjoyed today's lesson. Please do subscribe to the website, to the YouTube channel, and have a look at some of the other YouTube videos that are already up there, and explore music. Otherwise, for today, bye for now.